While we're talking about not being able to score goals, the opposition can't score the goals if you've got as much of the ball as you had last week. I mean, if you've got possession up in the 60%, that must make defending a lot easier for most of the game.
It does, and it's numbers. If those numbers are replicated and the possession stats are that, then you have a lot less defending to do. It's simple. You have nearly 70% of the ball in one half of the game, then you've only got to defend for 30%. So it becomes a lot easier, but we have to keep going. That could have easily been 4 wins on the trot, but we take the point in the end. It's a good point and sets us up for a home game on Saturday.
And it definitely will be a good point if you can get the win against Crewe and just keep that momentum going. Do Crewe still play the same style that they were famous for a few years ago?
They tried, probably not as much as when Dario was the manager, but it's about getting results and it's about the players you've got, and you have to play in a manner which benefits and helps your players and the best way possible to try and get results. So they've got some good players, and we, like I say every week to you, we have to be at a real good level to get a win. The hardest thing in the game is to win a game. It's a really hard thing to do, to win a game of football, because there's 2 teams trying to achieve the same thing. There's 22 players on the pitch, and it's the hardest thing to do is to win a game of football, and you have to be right at it to do that.
Yeah, and when you've got a squad like that, they stick together really well, don't they?
Yeah, it helps you a little bit in terms of it keeps that consistency, and there's not too many people missing out on being on the squad, which they can then get their heads down, and you're having to try and motivate them. So there's not too many people missing out of the squad at the moment.
And Shamir Mullings, we learned at the start of the week, he's injured. That just seems really unfortunate, because you'd send him out on loan to get some game time, and it just obviously hasn't worked.
No, of course, obviously there's been a statement put out about that. It's quite an embarrassing situation for us, but one we have to learn from.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Mark, we've spoken recently about your younger players really sort of stepping up to the plate, the Collinses, the Fitzwaters, Lakovitis. Is that a case of them gaining more confidence because they're playing game after game?
Possibly. Could also be that the older players are starting to reach good levels in their performance, which is then enabling them to look after the younger players. So there's loads of ways of looking at it, and I just think we're getting a bit of consistency now, and where players are playing to a good level, which is important. You can't have 4 or 5 players not at a level and expect to win a game of football. So I think there's various reasonings, Ash, and they've just got to stay at those levels now.
Yeah, and the 3 that I have mentioned do seem to be growing, and again, going back to that word, confidence.
Yeah, I think, and I said, going back a bit, that from the first minute, Brad Collins was given an awful lot of stick. But I think he's been shown a little bit of love, and you can see from his performances how he's developed, and that therein lies a lesson for everybody. If you give players a little bit of confidence and you support them, then they can perform. If they're getting abused every week, then it's difficult for a young lad to perform.
Yeah, and younger players need that, don't they?
Of course they
need the backing. They're not like a seasoned pro, I guess.
They need it more than the older ones, but it's a trait in this country that supporters tend to have a go at younger players, and but that's just the way it is. But it's important that everyone sticks together now, like we have been in recent weeks, and we try and keep grinding out those performances.
And they're certainly looking like players that they're at Premier League clubs or Championship clubs, aren't they?
I think if you look at the recent performances of people like Reece Brown, you can see why he was one of the best players in the England under-20 tournament in the Netherlands 18 months or so ago. You can see Brad Collins, why he's been at Chelsea for a long time, and it goes on. So there's no fluke that they've been at these big clubs, or they are at these big clubs. They're underneath, they are good players. It's just trying to get it out of them on a regular basis, and that's our job.
And that's a similar thing with England, isn't it, at the moment? Gareth Southgate, he's put his faith in the younger boys.
That's right. I think the one thing you get with the younger boys is they tend to have less fear when you ask them to play the way we do. So they're used to it coming through the academy system as well. So, but it's important that we have a nice blend. We have some experience in there as well to, you know, when it comes on top of it in games, the experienced boys can try and guide us through those turbulent waters.
And people like Scott Laird are now starting to show the player that he said he was when he arrived.
Yeah, Lairdy's a great character. He's a really good pro, and I think he would have been. Well, he's the first to admit that he had a poor start, and when I left him out of the team, he took it, unlike some, exactly how you would expect a top good pro to take it. He more or less apologised and said it's my fault, and I'm going to work really hard to get back in the team, and he did. And when he wasn't in the team, he was encouraging every other player. He was desperate for us to get a result, and he got back in the team, and he started to gain in confidence. His fitness has started to improve, and he looks a good player.
Okay, cheers, Mark.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.